अथ सप्तदशो अध्यायः डिस्कोर्स 17th King Parikshit subdues Kali. Jai Shri Krishna. Sutta said, there on the bank of the Saraswati, the King Parikshit saw a Shudra bearing the insignia of a royalty and with a club in his hand, belaboring a cow and a bull as though they had no protector. The bull, who was white as a lotus stalk and stood with difficulty one leg alone, was seen trembling and urinating as it were with fear while being beaten by the Shudra. As for the cow, who yields materials in the shapes of milk, ghee, etc., useful for religious acts such as the performance of sacrifices, etc., the king found her most miserable, being kicked by the Shudra and bereft of her calf. Her cheeks were bathed in tears, and she had grown very lean and thin and was hungry. Mounted on his gold-plated car and stringing his bow, he challenged the truant in ascent deep as the rumbling of a cloud. Who are you that are powerful enough to strike the weak so violently in that land, protected by me? Like an actor on the stage, you have put on the garb of a king, but by your action you are a Shudra, by striking harmless creatures in a lonely place and at a time when Sri Krishna has gone far away, ascended to his divine abode. Along with Arjuna, the wielder of the Gandiva bow, you have proved yourself to be an offender and therefore deserve to be slain. Turning to the bull, he went on, as for yourself, are you some divinity in the guise of a bull, white as a lotus stalk and moving on one foot only, having lost your other 3 feet and thus causing us great sorrow? On this hearth, securely guarded by the stout arms of the Parva kings, tears were never seen to drop from the eyes of the creatures other than you. Grieve no more, O bull, let your fear of the Shudra be gone. Weep not, mother. May all be well with you so long as I am here to punish the evildoer. The good reputation, longevity, fortune and prospects in the other world of that wild king go to the dogs, in whose dominion of virtues one the people are indiscriminately oppressed by the impetuous. To put an end to the suffering of the distressed, this indeed is the foremost duty of kings. Therefore I shall slay the most wicked fellow and enemy of living being that he is. Who is it that amputated your feet 3 feet, O bull, a quadruped as you are? Let there be no afflicted souls like you in the realm of king whose are votaries of Sri Krishna. Tell me, O bull, who it was the mutilated, innocent and good souls like you, and thus sullied the fair name of the Pandavas, the sons of Pratha. May good come to you. He who does evil to an innocent creature must have fear from me on all sides. Piyush souls are surely benefited when wild creatures are subdued. I shall certainly cut off them arms along with the armlet adorning it of the individual, be he a veritable god, who in his unbridled madness inflicts injury on harmless creatures. It is indeed the paramount duty of a monarch to protect those who stick to their own dharma, punishing according to the injunctions of the scriptures those other people who in this world have strayed from the path of virtue otherwise than inadvertised. Dharma replied, such an assurance of protection to the distressed is quite becoming of you, the scion of Pandu, whose host of virtues compelled the divine Sri Krishna to accept the humble role of an envoy, etc. to you, your forebears. Bewildered as we are by the conflicting statements of various thinkers, we know not the person who is responsible for the cause of suffering O dwell among men some who deny all differences, declare their own self as responsible for their suffering, other attributes it to providence, yet other ascribe it to their own doing. A fourth school averts nature to be cause of a suffering, while still others declare God as the best author of suffering. Some again hold that the cause of suffering is something beyond the reach of speech or mind. Now investigate, O royal sage, by your own judgment, which of these views is sound. Sutta continued, when Dharma spoke in the strain, Emperor Parikshit or Shonaka was disillusioned and with a calm mind replied to him as follows. The king said, you speak what is a right or knower of Dharma, righteousness. Evidently you are Dharma, the god of virtue in the guise of a bull. You refuse to tell the name of your persecutor only because you know that the lot which falls to wrongdoer is also shared by the doniqueur. Or the right conclusion is that the ways of the divine Maya, deluding potency, are surely beyond the scope of the mind and speech of living beings. In the Krata age, Satyuga, you had 4 whole feet in the form of austerity, purity, compassion and truthfulness. 3 of them have since been destroyed by the progeny of unrighteousness, pride, the attachment and haughter. Now, O Dharma, you have only 1 foot left in the shape of truthfulness on which you are somehow supporting yourself. Yonder unrighteousness in the shape of Kali, however, seeks to rob you of the same strength ended as it is by falsehood. And this cow is no other than the good Mother Earth, whose heavy burden was relieved by the Lord and who was adorned all around by his charming footprints. Forsaken by him, the Holy Mother now grieves like an unlucky woman with tears in her eyes to think that Shudras who hate the Brahmanas and pretend to be king will rule over her. Having thus comforted Dharma as well as Mother Earth, Parikshit, who was a great car warrior, drew his sharp-edged sword in order to dispose of Kali, the spring of unrighteousness. Perceiving that the king was bent upon killing him, he threw off his insignia of royalty and placed his head at the king's feet, overwhelmed with fear. The praiseworthy hero Parikshit, who was king to the meek and hospitable to those who sought his protection, took compassion on Kali, who had fallen at his feet, and did not slay him but smilingly spoke thus. The king said, you have no cause for fear when you have joined your palms before us that have inherited the glorious tradition of Arjuna, who had overcome sloth, but on no account should you stay in my realm, a friend as you are of unrighteousness, ever since you took up your abode in the body of kings, gods among men. These numerous wishes breed falsehood. Thy wing, wickedness, pronounces to sin poverty, while canton, carouseness and hypocrisy have followed you. Therefore, O ally of the unrighteousness, you should not remain in Brahmavarta, which is a fit abode for piety and truth, and where Brahmanas well versed in the elaborate ritual propitiate the Lord of sacrifices through sacrificial performance. In this land of Brahmavarta, Lord Sri Hari abides in the form of sacrifices and blesses his votaries. Nay, moving inside as well as outside all animate and inanimate beings like the air, the universal soul grants all their desire. Sutta continued, Kali trembled to hear this command of King Parikshit. He made the following request to the king, who stood ready to strike with his uplifted sword as Yamna with the rod of punishment. Kali said, wherever I think of taking up my abode in obedience to your command, O Emperor, I find you, bow and arrow in hand. Therefore, O jewel among champions of righteousness, it behooves you to tell me the place where I may settle down permanently. In compliance with your orders, Sutta continued, thus entered by Kali, the king then allocated to him the following 4 places: dyes, swine, women and shambles, the hotbeds of 4 vices: falsehood, intoxication, passion and cruelty. On Kali asking for more abodes, the mighty king assigned him gold as the 5th abode. Thus he allotted to him falsehood, intoxication, passion and slaughter with animosity as the 5th. In obedience to the king's command, Kali, the progenitor of unrighteousness, occupied these 5 abodes assigned by Parikshit, the son of Uttara. Hence a man seeking blessedness, especially a pious monarch, a leader of the people and a religious preceptor, should never resort to these. The king then resorted the 3 lost legs of the bull: penance, purity and compassion, and comforted and cherished Mother Earth. The self-same monarch still occupies the royal throne, which was bequeathed to him by the grand-uncle King Yudhishthira while retiring to the forest. Shining with the glory of the Kaurava kings, that most blessed emperor of the extensive renown, the royal sage Parikshit, dwells even now at Hastinapura. Such is the majesty of King Parikshit, the son of Abhimanyu, during whose rulership over the earth you have undertaken the vow of performing the sacrifice. Thus ends the 17th discourse entitled The Subjugations of Kali in Book 1 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, otherwise known as the Paramahansa Samhita. Jai Shri Krishna. Athashtadashodhyayah. Discourse 18th. The youthful sage Shringi uttars an impression against King Parikshit. Sutta continued, those scored head in the mother's womb by the missile discharged by Ashwathama, the son of Drona, King Parikshit did not die, was saved from extermination by the grace of Lord Shri Krishna of marvelous deeds. Having given his mind and heart to the Lord, he did not feel embarrassed even when faced with the terrible fear of meeting his death at the hands of the serpent Takshaka, spurred on by the anger curse of a Brahmana boy. Shaking of attachment to the everything, he accepted the discipleship of the sage Shuka, the celebrated son of Vyasa, and having realized the truth about Lord Sri Hari, cast off his body on the bank of the Ganga. No confusion arise even at the hour of death in the mind of those who talks of none else than Lord Shri Krishna of excellent renown, enjoy his nectar-like stories and contemplate on his lotus feet. Kali was powerless on this earth, even though he had penetrated every part of it, so long as the great King Parikshit, son of Abhimanyu, continued to rule over the same as its undisputed sovereign. As a matter of fact, Kali, the progenitor of unrighteousness, had set his foot on the earth the very day, nay, the very moment the Lord quitted it. The emperor, however, who looks the bee, drew the best out of everything, bore no grudge to Kali, for he knew that in this age meritorious acts bear fruit immediately as soon as they are projected, but not so those other sinful acts which yields fruit only when they are actually committed. In fact, of what account is Kali, who is heroic in the midst of children, the ignorant but is cowardly before the wise, strong-minded, and whose like the wolf is ever alert to take the unwary man by surprise. I have thus related to you, O sages, the sacred life account of King Parikshita, connected as it is with the story of Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva. This was what you inquired of me. Lord Shri Krishna performed many a deed, which is a feat subject for discourse. Men seeking blessedness should therefore listen with rapt attention to all his stories that depict his virtue and narrate his exploits. The sages said, "Good Sutta, may you live for years without number, you who recount the untarnished glory of Lord Shri Krishna, which is like nectar to us mortal, to us, whose body has been soiled by the smoke arising from the sacrificial fire, even while we are engaged in the sacrificial performance, the fruit of which is uncertain. You give to drink to our hearts content the sweet and invigorating honey flowing from the lotus feet, the Lord Govinda. Shri Krishna, we cannot compare with a moment's fellowship of loving devotee of the Lord, either heavenly bliss or even final beatitude, the cessation of birth and death, much less the enjoyment sought after by mortal man. What man of good taste would feel sated with hearing the story of the Lord, who is the only and the final goals of the greatest saint? Even masters of yoga, headed by Lord Shiva and the lotus-born Brahma, have not been able to exhaust the virtues of the Lord, who is beyond the gunas of Prakriti. Therefore, O Learned Sutta, the whom among us all God is the foremost concern of life, tell us at length the noble and holy doings of Shri Krishna, Lord Shri Krishna, who is the only and final result of the greatest soul, eager as we are to hear of them. That great devotee of the Lord King Parikshit, of no mean understanding, attained to the feet of Lord Shri Krishna, whose banner bears the device of Garuda, the king of the birds, which are otherwise known by the name of final beatitude, throne wisdom taught by the sage Shuka in the form of a story. Pray narrate to us that most sacred story embodying the wisdom imparted to Parikshit, the story of Srimad Bhagavata, which lays bare the truth is unambiguous terms and firmly established one in the extremely wonderful yoga of love, nay, which also contain an account of the doing of the Lord and delight his devotees. Sutta continued, though born of a mother whose caste is superior to the father's, my birth, which has been depressed in the Shastras, has been fulfilled today through the service of elders, for association, even by way of conversation with the noblest soul, quickly drives away the heart's agony caused by such despicable birth. Such a consummation is all the more assured in the case of him who utters the name of the Lord, the only and final resort of the noblest soul. For infinite is the Lord and infinite his powers, nay, it is because he is possessed of endless virtue that they call him Ananta, in order to show that he is unequaled and unsurpassed in virtues. Suffice it to point out that, rejecting others who quoted her, Goddess Lakshmi sought the dust of his feet, even though he did not seek her hand. Again the water which was of his feet, even though he did not seek her hand, again the water which was offered by the Creator Brahma to wash the feet of the Lord when he assumed a cosmic form of the sacrifice of the demon King Bali, and then flowed from the nails of his toes, sanctifies the whole universe along with Lord Shiva, who bore it on his head in response to the prayer of King Bhagiratha. Under such circumstances, who else than Lord Shri Krishna, the best hour of liberation, could deserve the epithet Bhagwan in the world? The wise that have developed love for him shake off in no time their deep-rooted attachment to their body, etc., and enter the last stage of Paramahansa, recluses and duties. O sages that shine like the sun, what you have asked me in the assembly according to their own capacity, so do the learned recount the pastimes of the all-pervading Lord Vishnu according to their own understanding. Taking up his bow, King Parikshit was hunting in the forest on a certain day. Running after the game, he got fatigued and felt extremely hungry and thirsty. Finding no reservoir of water near at hand, he entered the well-known hermitage of the sage Samika and saw there a hermit who sat still with his eyes closed. Having held his senses and breath, mind and intellect in perfect control, he had withdrawn himself from the world, and having reached that immutable state which lies beyond the three states of consciousness, waking, dream and dreamless sleep, he had become one of Brahma. His body was covered with unloosed matter, hair and the skin of a black deer. Finding him in the state of Parikshita, asked him for water to drink, his tongue being pursed with thirst. Not being offered a mat of straw or bare ground to sit on, and denied water to wash his hand and feet or even kind words, the king thought himself as treated with disrespect and grew indignant. Accordingly, his mind being oppressed with hunger and thirst, there arose in him all of a sudden a feeling of enmity and anger against the sage, which, O Shaunaka, he had never entertained before against a Brahmana. While departing, he indigently threw with the end of his bow a dead serpent across the shoulder of the Brahmana's sage, and returned to his capital. He offered the indignity to the sage because he wanted to make sure whether he had closed his eyes inasmuch as he had really withdrawn all his senses from their objects, or he simply find deep meditation because he thought he had nothing to do with the rest Kshatriya. The sage's son, who was possessed of abundant spiritual glow, though a mere boy, happened to be playing at that time with other Brahmana boys. Having heard of the indignity to which his father had been subjected by the king, he made the following observation on the spot: the unrighteousness of the ruling class, who have grown fat like crows, like dogs that guard one's door. These servants of Brahmanas dare to insult their very masters. The Brahmanas have appointed the Kshatriya as their doorkeeper. How then can he who has been posted at the gate enter the house of his master and eat out of the latter's food, now that Lord Sri Krishna, the chastier of those who have strayed from the path of virtue, has departed? I shall presently correct those that have violated the rules of decorum. Just see how powerful I am. Having thus spoken to his playmates, the young sage sipped water from the Kaushiki, and his eyes turning crimson with anger, he hurled a thunderbolt in the form of the following curse: impelled by me, Takshaka, a chief of the serpents, shall on the 17th day hence bite that bane of his race, who has so openly transgressed the bounds of prosperity by his hostile behavior towards my father. The boy then returned to his hermitage, and distressed to see his father with a snake about his neck, wept aloud. On hearing the laments of his son, Shaunaka, the sage Shamika, a son of Angira, gradually opened his eyes, and throwing off the dead serpent which he saw lying across his shoulder, inquired, "Child, wherefore do you weep? Who has wronged you?" Thus asked, the boy told him all that had happened. The Brahmana Shamika did not uphold his son when he heard of the execration uttered against the king, who did not deserve it, but said, "Alas, foolish child, you have committed a great sin in that you have visited his trivial offense with such a heavy punishment. It does not behove you to judge a king who bears the name of Vishnu by the standard of ordinary man, or child of unripe wisdom, protected by his formidable strength. The people are rid of all fear and secure blessings of all sorts. When Lord Vishnu, who whilst discussed in one of the hands appearing under the name of king, is screened from our views, dear child, thieves will crop forth in large numbers, and the world which will be unprotected then will perish like a flock of sheep in a moment. When the ruler is dead, thieves will rob the people of their property, and the evil that befalls them in this way will now fall on our heads, since we shall be held responsible for the ruler's death, the cause of all his iniquity and lawlessness, even though we have no direct connection with it. Nay, when people take the robbery in large numbers, they belabor and abuse one another and snatch one another's cattle, women, folk, and wealth. In such conditions, the noble religion of the people, which derives its authority from the Vedas and is characterized by a course of conduct laid down for the different grades of a society and stages of life, disappears. Dense fellows of confusion of caste among men, whose hearts are given up to wealth and sense gratification, as among dogs and monkeys. Emperor Parikshit, moreover, is a monarch of wide renown and a defender of righteousness. Nay, he is a great devotee of the Lord and a royal sage, who has performed a number of horse sacrifice. Again, he was overcome with hunger, thirst, and fatigue, and absolutely helpless. Hence, he did not deserve our course. May the Almighty Lord, who is the soul of the universe, forgive the wrong perpetrated by this child of immature understanding against his innocent servant. Even when we approach deceived, abused, disgraded, or struck by others, devotee of the Lord never return the wrong done by the wrongdoer, though capable of doing so. Thus grieved at the wrong done by his son, the great sage Shamika did not even think of the offense committed by the king, who had treated him with disrespect. Generally speaking, holy men in the world neither grieves nor rejoice when they are subjected to contrary experience by others, for the soul is ever beyond the three gunas. Thus ends the 18th discourse entitled The Brahmana's Curse in Book 1 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, otherwise known as the Paramahansa Samhita. Jai Shri Krishna. अथ एकोनविंशो अध्यायः Discourse 19th. Parikshit takes a vow of fasting till death and Shuka pays a visit to him. Jai Shri Krishna. Sutta continued, Now the king too felt much troubled at heart at the thought of his reproachful conduct, and said to himself, Oh, like a vulgar man, I have behaved very ignobly with that innocent Brahmana of hidden spiritual power, as a result of the disrespect shown by me to the Lord himself. In the form of that saint, some calamity hard to overcome will surely befall me not long afterwards. Let it come directly on me, by all means, for the expiations of my sin, so that I may not have the courage to repeat it. Let fire in the shape of the angered Brahmana race consume this very day the kingdom, the army, and the rich treasury of my assured self, so that I may not harbor a sinful thought with regard to the Brahmanas, the gods, and the cows hereafter. While thus reflecting, he presently heard how death, impelled by the curse of the sage son, awaited him under the appellation of Takshaka. He looked upon the fire like poison of Takshaka as a blessing, for the thought the same would speedily arouse dispassion in him who was deeply attached to the world. Now renouncing this as well as the other world, both of which he had already concluded as worth rejecting, and recognizing the adoration of Sri Krishna's feet as superior to everything else, he sat down on the bank of the Ganga, the river of the immortal, with a resolve to fast till death. The Ganga carries in it the water which excels all other waters due to its contact with the dust of Sri Krishna's feet, mixed with lovely tulsi leaves borne on them, and sanctifies all the worlds both above and below along with their guardian deities. Indra and others, what dying man would not resort to the holy river, having thus resolved upon fasting till death on the bank of the Ganga, which flows from the feet of Lord Vishnu and shaken of all attachment to the world. King Parikshit, a scion of Pandu, took a vow to lead the life of a hermit and fixed his mind on the feet of Lord Shri Krishna, the best hour of liberation, with undivided devotion. There arrived with their pupil sages of great spiritual power who brought sensitivity to the whole world. Under the pretext of visiting holy places, the saints generally concentrate the places of pilgrimage themselves. Three came: Atri, Vasishtha, Chavana, Shraddhavan, Arishtanemi, Bhragu and Angira Parashara. The father of Vedavyasa, Vishwamitra, the son of Gadhi, and Rama, more popularly known as Parshurama, Uthayatha, Pipalada, Maitreya, Orva, Kavasa, the jar-born sage Agastya, the island-born Vedavyasa and the divine sage Narada, as well as other distinguished celestial and Brahmana sages and amendment royal sages, besides other sages such as Aruna. Seeing the foremost of many RSI families gathered there, the king received them with due honor and bowed his head to them. When they were all comfortably seated, he made obeisance to them once more, and standing before them with joined palms, told them with a joyless heart what he intended to do. The king said, "We are the most blessed of all monarchs, possessing as we do a character which has deserved the grace of the noblest soul. Alas, the race of king, the ruling class, is generally far removed from deprived of the privilege of bearing on their head the water in which the feet of Brahmanas have been washed. Their doings are so reproachful to me. No sinful and ever so deeply attached to the whom the Lord himself, who is the ruler of the entire universe, has come in the form of Brahmana's curse, that has aroused in me a feeling of aversion to worldly enjoyments. For under such a curse, one who is deeply attached to world speedily develops dispassion. May the Brahmanas assembled here, as well as Goddess Ganga, know me as a devotee who has approached them for protection. Having fixed his mind on the Lord, urged by the Brahmana, let someone who has cunningly assumed the form of Takshaka or Takshaka himself bite me at will. Meanwhile, I implore you to sing the stories of Lord Vishnu, bowing once more to you. The Brahmanas, I pray, in every birth I take hereafter, may I be blessed with devotion to the immortal Lord Shri Krishna, strong attachment for noble souls depending on him, and friendship for all. Thus resolved, and having placed the kingly responsibilities on the shoulders of his own eldest son, Janmejaya, the wise king sat down on the southern bank of the Ganga, a spouse of the deity presiding over the ocean, on the blades of Kausha, with their roots turned to the east, himself facing the north. When that king of King Emperor Parikshit had thus taken his seat with a vow to fasting till death, hosts of gods in heaven, shouting applause and joyfully rained down flowers on him. On the earth, while drums were sounded again and again, the great races who had assembled there were benevolent to the people by their very disposition, and spent all their energy in conferring benefits on them. They too applauded the king and approved of his resolve, exclaiming, "Splendid," and spoke words which fitted with well the king, who was deeply impressed with the virtue of the Lord of excellent renown. O chief of the royal sages, this is no wonder in you, the scion of Pandu, devoted as you are to Shri Krishna, for in your eagerness to attain proximity to the Lord, you have speedily renounced the imperial throne against which king robbed their crowns. Now we shall all remain here till this king, who is foremost among the devotees of the Lord, has cast off his mortal coil and ascended to the highest abode of the Lord, which is beyond to reach of Maya and free from sorrow. On hearing these words of the sage's impartial speech, full of deep significance and truth, Parikshit greeted the sages who had all become one with the Supreme Spirit and eager to hear the stories of Lord Vishnu. Shri Krishna replied to them as follows: shining like the Vedas, the abide invisible form in the highest heaven, the Satyaloka Brahmanas abode, you have all come together from every quarter, and you have no purpose of your own to achieve in this world or the next, except doing good to others, which is your initiate disposition. Questions worth asking in regard to my duty. Tell me, O learned sages, after due deliberation, what innocent course should be pursued by all under every circumstances, and in particular by those who are about to die. Meanwhile there arrived on the scene, wandering about on the earth at will, the divine Shuka, the son of Vyasa, who was indifferent to the world and had no visible marks of any particular varna, grade of society or ashrama, stage of life on his person, who was counted with the realization of his an ascetic that had renounced all worldly attachments and connections, 16 years of age, with tender feet, hand, thighs, arms, shoulders, cheeks and frame. He had a lovely countenance with large eye, a prominent nose, symmetrical ears, beautiful eyebrows and a conch-like shapely neck. His collarbone was hidden with a fleshy frame, his chest was broad and prominent, his navel deep and spiral like an eddy, and his belly looked charming with its three folds. He was stark-necked, with hair flung about his face, had long arms and shone like one of the highest gods. He possessed a swarthy complexion and captivated the heart of woman by his charming youth, graceful limbs and winsome smiles, although he had cancelled his spiritual glow. Behind her crazy appearance, the sages present there recognized him by his characteristic features and rose from their seats to receive him. King Vishnurata Parikshit, so called because his life had been preserved by Lord Vishnu, Shri Krishna himself, of whom we have spoken before, bowed his head to the stranger who had called on him of his own accord and did homage to him. The ignorant women and children thereupon withdrew and worshipped by all the sage occupied and exalted seat, surrounded by hosts of Brahmana sages, royal sages and celestial sages. The divine Shuka, who was greatest among the great, shone most resplendent, even as the moon in the midst of other planets, constellations and stars. When the stage of unfailing wisdom had taken his seat, fully composed, the king, who was a devotee of the Lord, approached him and touching his feet with his head, stood attentive before him. Then bowing again with joined palms, he questioned the sage in sweet accents. Parikshit said, "Oh, how blessed are we today, O holy sage, in that we village Kshatriyas have been considered worthy of a visit by saints and have been so graciously consecrated by you by calling on us as our guests. Men's houses are instantly purified by your remembrance, much more by your sight and touch, by washing your feet, offering a seat to you and so on. Men's was sin, O great yogi, are wiped out at once by your very presence, even as the demons are by the presence of Lord Vishnu. I presume Lord Shri Krishna, the friend of the Pandavas, is pleased with me. It is for the pleasure of his cousin, the Pandavas, that he has acted in a friendly manner even towards me. Dear scion, otherwise how could we human beings, much less those who are about to die, obtain the privilege of seeing you, whose movements are so obscure and who have fully realized the objects of human life and life in a lonely forest? Therefore I inquire of you, the greatest preceptor of the yogis, the character and the means of the highest realization, nay, what should be done under the circumstances by a man who is on the verge of death? Again tell me, my lord, what should be done by men in general? What should they hear? What should they repeat with their tongue? What should they keep in their mind? What should they resort to and what should they avoid? For now where, O divine sage, are you seen to stay at the door of householders even for the brief space of time taken in milking a cow? Sutta continued, thus addressed and questioned by the king in soft accents, the divine Shuka, the son of Badrayana, who was conversant with Dharma, made answer as follows. Thus ends the 19th discourse entitled The Visit of Ashuka in Book 1 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, otherwise known as the Paramahansa Samhita, composed by the sage Vyasa and consisting of 18,000 shlokas. Shri Prathamah Skandha Sampurnam. Jai Shri Krishna.